The Rebel Capitalist Show. You were mentioning in your course the importance or how to set up a network.
Yeah.
This is something that I never did. And another big mistake that I made as an entrepreneur, I always wanted to do everything myself. And I just really didn't care about setting up relationships or getting to know people in the industry. It was just all seemed like a waste of time to me. And now we'll go back here. When I started doing the Rebel Capitalist Show, I took a much different approach. And just because I was being more myself and just being extroverted and just trying to meet people that I thought were fascinating and talk to them. And so as a result, I was able to interview Kiyosaki.
Mm-hmm.
And after I interviewed Kiyosaki the first time, I didn't know him from Adam. But I was like, wow, this is really, really cool that because I set up this podcast, I now have the opportunity to kind of discuss business and branding with this guy that's just an absolute legend. And so after I interviewed him, we talked for maybe, probably 2 or 3 hours, something like that. And then as a result of interviewing other people and just being more open to setting up a network and the value there, I went and had dinner with Kiyosaki, and then he introduced me to Kenny McElroy. And then Kenny McElroy introduced me to all these other people. And then through the show and the podcast and the whiteboard videos, I reached out to Rollo. And then I was able to connect Rollo with Kiyosaki. And now they've done quite a bit of content. I think they just did a class at like ASU the other day with Kenny. And then as a result of that relationship, then I think you were able to do something with Kiyosaki. And then and this is just one part of the network. I've been able to do that with guys and gals in the macro space and finance and hedge fund managers. But it's become a very, very key component in the success that I have had with the show and the YouTube channel. And I look back as an entrepreneur, I'm just like punching myself saying, why didn't you do that? Why were you so damn stubborn before, when now it's not only a benefit to the business, but it's a benefit to my life, where I have all these really exciting, interesting, intelligent people that are part of that network that, forget the YouTube and the podcast, but just going out to dinner and having an intellectual conversation with these people. It's just very, very satisfying. So,
it's so valuable.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that?
100%. Let me tell you a funny story, because I had a revelation in the fall. So I got introduced to Robert Kiyosaki through you at some point last year, and I did a podcast with him. And shortly after that, like a day or two after, I had to pick up my car from the McLaren dealership. So I've got a McLaren 720S, for those of you that don't know, and I'm driving it. The phone rings and I answer it, and it's kind of broken up and I can barely hear him. And it's Robert Kiyosaki calling me, right? He's like, hey, I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to be on your podcast, and I enjoyed it. And it's like, like I'm hearing some of it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Robert, I can barely hear you, but is this a number that I can reach? And I'll give you a call back later, and we'll chat. And he's like, yeah, sure, no problem. And I got off the call, and I'm like, I had this moment where I had to kind of like sit for a sec, because I'm like, I'm driving a McLaren 720S, and Robert Kiyosaki is calling me on my phone to thank me for doing the podcast episode. I'm like, how awesome is that? Right.
Yeah.
So, to the point of the network. So a buddy of mine, Jason Gaynard, he runs these masterminds, and I don't know if he came up with this term, but he's a person that I heard it from first. And he says, your network is your net worth.
Right.
Essentially, like, we could be stripped of everything, the cars, the money, everything, the computers, the phone, but you could drop you or I in a foreign country somewhere. And as long as I have, my contact list, like my network, I could make it work. I could probably solve any problem very quickly, make money very quickly. Because truthfully, if you don't have a good network, then you don't have a net worth. A lot of people just focus on making the money and put it in the bank, and they, squirrel it away, sort of thing. But you have to, as you're building a business, as you become a man, worth your salt, so to speak, as they say, you're going to have to build a good network. And, like, networks are great for so many phenomenal things. Like, I build a course which solves problems when it comes to entrepreneurship. I look at my contact list. I'm like, well, I know this guy, George Gammon. We've talked many a times.
Yeah,
He's
great
probably
example.
got audience is very similar to mine. So I reach out to you and I say, hey, do you want to have a conversation about this course that's going to help entrepreneurs, get their business off the ground and do the right things? They're like, absolutely. Right. So it's like,
Yep.
having a good network is very, very useful. You definitely want to build that as you're building your business, because you will have to tap into it. And there's any number of things that you can use. I think that one of the most useful ones that I use, but it's a little bit wokeified now, is Entrepreneurs Organization. I don't know if you're ever a member of that.
No, I know. What is that?
It's a very good organization. They've got chapters worldwide. I don't know what the total member count is, but in any large city, you're going to find 130 to 160 members. Like in Toronto, I think they had 150 members.
Was that EO? They just shortened it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Kenny and Hartman. I think Kenny is still a member. Kenny McElroy.
Yeah.
Scottsdale. And I think Jason Hartman is another guy that I do a mastermind with. He was a member of that as well.
And all of those organizations will then introduce you to events, speakers. Like we had this one event where we did this retreat with Vern Harnish, right? And that was a cool day. Like, you're sitting at a dinner table with Vern Harnish, like, holy shit, like that's awesome. There's a guy called Yannick Silver who runs these business retreats for entrepreneurs, and I got invited down to drive a challenge car off-road in Baja for 600 miles with like 12 or 16 other entrepreneurs. I can't remember the total count, for about 6 days. And that was awesome. And I only got that invite because I knew somebody in a network that connected me with somebody else that was a car guy that also facilitated retreats for business owners. And it's like, that's a total write-off. I can do that. Right. So as you grow your business, you don't want to, stay in it and fully, cocoon yourself. I'm an introvert. I know watching this, you're probably like, shut up, Rich. You're talking too much. You're not an introvert, but I am. I actually prefer the company of myself, but I love being around other entrepreneurs. Like I like being, in an opportunity, like being in a place where you can have an opportunity to have cool conversations with interesting people that have done cool stuff. The stories are always so amazing to listen to. So yeah, definitely. Like as you build a business, build your network, because it is more valuable than you think.